Whew. Hello Susan, hello Ruth, and Kate and Madeline. My goodness, it's gold. It's about -6 centigrade chill factor. Hello Trisha, Jackie, Liz, welcome everybody. Please tell me you're still there. Oh, you're still there, thank goodness. I had a little bit of a malfunction. Okay. Hello, Kate. Yeah, it is very, very chilly, but that's okay. It's winter time. We should expect that. It's dry at least. The weather was actually correct. Hoi, Natalie. Because it said it was going to be cold. Dry but cold. So let's there we go. It's still looking very pretty. Is the sound okay? Hello Traveller L, I think I know who you are. Welcome, welcome. And I'm hoping the sound's okay. So yeah, welcome to Amsterdam. And detailed Amsterdam number 32. And I think you all know me already. Hey, Tony, hi. And yeah, we're on the Herengracht still. Let me hello, Traveller L. All of you, Traveller L is a friend of mine. So cool that you joined. So here, look how lovely and wintry it looks. So, back again. We're on the Herengracht. And as I mentioned in the Facebook groups today, let me just dig around in my bag and find it. Today, at the end of the tour, we are having a quiz for the Delft Blues Slicey. Okay, so that's up for grabs today. And even if you've won one before, you're very welcome to enter today's competition. So let's get cracking. What I'd like to talk about today, one of the things is the Tripp family. Okay, the Tripp family were a family of very, very rich merchants. The family, I believe, is pretty much petered out. A skipper friend of mine actually is a very distant Tripp relative. I said to him, so, Martin, why aren't you rich? And he said, well, their fortune got spent and diluted somewhat across the generations. Isn't it looking pretty? Anyway, look, the Tripp family were a family of merchants from the Regent class in Amsterdam, and we're talking 16 and 1700s. In 1615, two brothers, Elias and Jacob, they formed a trading company in Amsterdam. And they traded mainly in grain, tar, iron ore and copper and arms. And that was mainly with Sweden and England and Germany, but also West Africa. Oh, thank you for the coffees, Kate. West Africa and Japan, believe it or not. Japan was quite something. You know, Japan was closed to trade with the West, except for the Dutch. The Dutch basically cornered the Japanese market, and that was right up until the mid-1800s when the Americans forced the market open. But anyway, where were we with this one? Yeah, the Tripps had a grand house. Let me show you one of their grand houses. Many of you would have seen this house before. This is on the Kloveniersburgwal, and that was certainly the very fancy family home, but that was built in 1662. And the Tripps were around and they were wealthy before that generation. With the house we're going to see soon, I'm just showing you this grey house here quickly. So when I say the grey house just up the road and just a bit, that's what I'm talking about. That grey house there, okay. But in 1640, the house that we're going to have a look at in just a moment was home to Aletta Adriaansdochter. So Aletta, daughter of Adrian. And she was the widow of Elias Tripp. And she was one of the wealthiest women in the Dutch Republic. Now, oh wow, look at the nice light. Not surprisingly, if you're one of the wealthiest women in the Dutch Republic, you're going to have your portrait painted, yeah? And why not choose Rembrandt? And here are two Rembrandt portraits. Hey, hi Audrey. On the left is Mum, so that's a letter. Isn't she a beauty? And on the right, her daughter, Maria Tripp. As I say, these two exceptionally wealthy and gorgeous women. I think the richer they got, the gorgeouser they got. And so just have a look at them for a moment. Rembrandt really went all out here. He was still in his phase of really trying to, I was trying to zoom in on the photo, but now I've messed things up. He was still really pleasing the client. You know, she's wearing these layers of Flemish lace that are sort of transparent. She's dripping in pearls. And yeah, it was a very beautiful portrait in the Rijksmuseum. And so yeah, sorry, it's so cold. Elias had no children with his first. And then with his second wife, with Aletta, he had two daughters and two sons. And this is where they lived, by the way. This is where Aletta lived. Now, the one daughter, Sophia, she married a Johannes Koymans. And Maria, who I just showed you the picture of, she married his brother. So you got two sisters marrying two brothers, Balthazar Koymans. And then the one son married actually a member of the dad's first wife's family. And then the other son married into the Bickers family. Now you'll remember Bickers Island. They actually owned an island in Amsterdam Harbour area. So that's how they kept their money together. With those two brothers I mentioned, we're talking 1600s now, eh? And they were obviously very wealthy with their trading enterprises, but they also had money in the bank. And they had so much money in the bank, in the Amsterdam bank, that they were making 300,000 guilders a year on interest on their cash savings. A grand house like this probably cost about 40,000 guilders. So we're talking serious money here anyway. Now Maria and Balthazar moved into the grey building I showed you just a bit earlier. They had he was 30 years her senior, by the way. And they had 9 kids, 5 of whom survived because infant mortality was terrible then. All daughters, by the way. And then when Balthazar died, Maria moved in here to her mom's place, but her mom had also died by then. So Maria ended up living in the building behind us. Now there have been various other Tripps living there. There were lots of Tripps in Amsterdam. And then there was a doctor, then the consulate to Sardinia and Sicily, and then a tobacco company director. And then, oddly enough, it was actually the headquarters of the Dutch Labour Party until 2016. And now it's part of a company that's called The Collection. And they rent out fancy office spaces. By the way, I'm streaming on my new iPhone. Isn't it brilliant? I just love the quality. It's great. So just to give you an idea of these houses and how they stretch back, here, if you see outlined in red, that's actually the house that we were just looking at. And you can see how it extends backwards. And it's completely built over, even over the garden. That's kind of probably from its office's days. And then I think it's quite interesting to see the one next door. It's a bit difficult to tell. Let me just get this right. The one next door, you see there's the green, which I've put there, outlined in green. That is the house on the street front. And then check out behind it. Like there's a whole nother house. Isn't that amazing? And some garden, and kind of fancy garden as well. Check it out. So it's just remarkable, these whole hidden worlds that Amsterdam has back there, you know, that you never really see. Anyway, I think that's quite interesting. Get rid of that. Zoom out. Okay, so let's wander yonder. Number 60 to number 68. So that's 4 big buildings. This is number 60 here with the white above the front door. Oops, I'm going the wrong side of the bicycle. So 60, 62, 64, 66, 68. Oh no, actually it's 60. This is 60 and that's 62. Were all bought at the same time by the same guy who developed them. And his name was Jan van Alderwereld, which kind of loosely translates as all the world. And he was the son of a rich Flemish Protestant refugee. He fled the Spanish Habsburgs with the sacking of Antwerp in 1585. And it was in 1614 that he bought these 4 plots here, because that's when they did this extension of the Canal belt. And built these houses. Now what he would put on the tops, so on the top of all of his houses, was a globe. And he had other houses around Amsterdam, and he always had a globe on the top of them because that was his symbol, having a surname that sounded a little bit like the world, like all the world. So the globe was all the world. Number 60 here, the first one. In 19, isn't it? In 13, and I can't even get I'm so cold I can't say numbers. In 1636, this house got a bust of Louis XIII on it, and the house became known as the King of France. Now, what you're looking at here is clearly not from the 1600s. This is from 1734. And it was built in the Louis XIV style. So rock style, if you just zoom in, I mean, look at that fancy, fancy cornice gable up there. It's the iPhone 15. I got the basic one. I couldn't stretch as far as the fancy ones. But the person who sold it, he said, even though it's the basic one, it's still just like 1% less good than the Max, so you may as well just go for it. So, just zoom in up here. Here is the bust of the King of France. Now, I was trying to find out which King of France it is. You know, because this is now Louis XIV style, so the Baroque. And so, but I thought, sorry, excuse me, Louis XV style as well. But I thought maybe, no, Louis XIV, but I thought maybe it was Louis XV, because this was the king who was alive then in 1734. But then in this book I found, they said that the king was actually Louis XIII. But then this Louis looks much more like the 15th. Anyway, I'm going to have to go with Louis XIII. It's not the quiz question, so don't get wrong. Don't get too stressed about it. But beautifully maintained property, beautifully renovated property, isn't it? Okay, moving on. This orange one here is actually a KLM house. So I'm sure most of you know that KLM, if you fly first class, then they give you a China house full of gin. And they have numbers. And this here is the KLM house, number 56. Whew. Now, the tenant, because, okay, this was owned by the same guy, the Van der Wereld guy, yeah? But he had a tenant here, a famous tenant, Frederick Riehel, and that was in 1664. And he had his portrait painted by Rembrandt, of course. Let me show you that portrait. Here you go. Okay, so he had it painted by Rembrandt. And it was 2.5 meters. It is 2.5 meters by 3 meters. That's 8 feet by 10 feet. It's actually one of Rembrandt's biggest portraits. And it's the only, actually no, it's not true. It's one of 2 full-sized equestrian portraits, just of normal Dutch citizens. The other one, I believe, is in the Sixth collection. I've seen it, I just can't remember who it is. I think it's a Trip in the Sixth collection. This one hangs in the London National Gallery. Now, on the bottom left of the portrait, you might just be able to make out, if you go and see it in the London Gallery, that there's a coach there, and this is carrying the 10-year-old Prince William III of Orange. Now, his mum was Mary, the eldest daughter of Charles I of England, and she married Prince William II of Orange. Now, just to make things really complicated, their son, who became William III, he married Mary, the eldest daughter of James II. James II was brother of the older Mary. So basically, he married his first cousin. So they were kissing cousins. And we get 2 generations of Williams and Marys just to confuse tour guides. Now, with this Rembrandt painting, I took the liberty of brightening it up a bit because I thought, you know, Rembrandt does have a reputation for being a little gloomy. So I added a bit of light into it so you could actually see it. Took liberties. Sorry, Rembrandt. Whew, my fingers are frozen. You know, I've always loved the look of these gingerbread houses reflected in the windows on the opposite side of the canal. It's always appealed to me. Okay, where are we up to now? Whew. Here, oddly enough, is a modern gable stone of nothing less than the world, and it even says the world. And this is just a reference to the guy who owned all of these buildings and the one who would always put a globe on top of his buildings. Okay, this is from the 1930s, that one. This is a lovely building, also Louis XV flourishes. Check out up there, just under the gable, there's a lovely detail. I took a photograph of it here. Check out, I mean, it's really very, very beautiful. There's an amazing amount of detail in Amsterdam's buildings, and that's what we're all about on Detailed Amsterdam. Wandering over here, this is the in-between period, in between Dutch Renaissance and Louis XIV. We got, you're still a bit miffed. Santa didn't leave me a gable stone. Okay. This is Dutch classicism. So you got the Renaissance period, and then you got Dutch classicism. Look at this, with this really large pediment and all these pilasters all the way down. And then you come onto the Louis and architectural styles. Whew. Right. These entrances here, so on this was 2 houses, yeah? Even though it looks like one. There were always 2, and this one, there's the entrance here, and this one had a mirrored entrance, so the same on this side. And then in the 1700s that was taken away, and they went for a street entrance instead. Funny how people change things over the years, eh? Now, oddly enough, for about 10 years at the end of the 1800s and the beginning of the 1900s, it was a hospital with 30 beds. And after that, it became a factory for ladies' underwear and pajamas. So there you go. Who'd have thought? And just to break it up a bit, we have a Jugendstil Art Nouveau building next door with this interesting, I'll show you from the other side of the canal as well, this really interesting asymmetrical bit here, which just kind of breaks the height between the 2 buildings in a slightly less jarring manner. Whew, okay. Now, actually I want to show you a view down here. I found a nice view of this in the city archive before they had cars. So I think it's always nice to see what Amsterdam looked like before. I'll put it on the left, right over here. How's about that, eh? Really big trees then as well. The trees aren't that big nowadays. Phew. Okay. Phew, here. This is what I look like nowadays. Whew. There's a collection point for Christmas trees. Okay. Look at the difference, huh? On the left, there are cars. On the right, there's no car parking. It's really beautiful without car parking, isn't it? Okay. Now, it's the Amsterdam Light Festival on at the moment. And hey, by the way, talking about light, it sounds like. If you could like this video, that'd be cool. Okay, I always forget to ask, and at least I remembered now. If you like it, of course. So the Amsterdam Light Festival is all about these little light installations, and here happens to be one over here. This illuminated figure, and you find them all over the city. Now, this particular installation, so as I said, you find them on different parts of the route of the Light Festival. And this is by an artist called Gail May Lucas, British-born, Amsterdam-based, since 1992. And the figures, the idea is that you get these figures, and they're overlooking beautiful views of the canal. So here's a beautiful view of the canal. But the figures are not even looking at the view because they're so wrapped up in their telephones. I mean, they're physically present, but their minds are completely elsewhere. That is what this installation is saying. And, the idea is that phones are an extension of our contact with people around the world. I mean, listen, look at what I'm doing now. I'm walking with my phone and a gimbal. But, the idea is the question is are we becoming more engaged with virtual reality than with each other and the world around us? I think very topical for an online tour guide, but I think the live element of this means we really are interacting with each other. Right. Let's get a look across where we were, and you can see how grand these houses are. Look at that one there. Beautiful. I was looking at some prices. They've gone up, of course. It used to be about 10,000 euros a square meter. I think it's more like 12,000 now in this area. Oops, as I walk into a bicycle. So, here's an unusual building. This is quite modern, from I think 1875, and the sort of neo-style, I can't even say it, eclecticism, unusual gable top. And this used to be a covert Roman Catholic church. And then in the mid to late 1800s, it was rebuilt in this style. It was actually built as a coach house. And that's why here on the ground floor, there's these great big doors, because that's where a horse and coach could ride in and out. And there was space above for the grooms. And actually the guy who owned it, he had a house opposite. So this was probably really just his coach house and maybe a rental property upstairs. An unusual, oops, there's a car coming through. Unusual little detail here. And above the door was a number. It says SS194. Yeah, Susan, that sounds treacherous. SS 194. Now, the street numbering here changed in 1875, all along this canal. And this is one of the, or possibly the only reference to the old street numbering. This was SS 194. And below it is a salmon, you see? Little salmon fishy there. That's because the name of this house, centuries before, used to be the Salmon. So they kept that motif above the door. This one here has a star above the door. The star above the door looks quite modern. It's not. Oopsie. The star above the door has been there for a good couple of hundred years. And not only is there one above the door, but there's one in the gable here. And the funny thing is that nobody knows why. It's just lost in time. And if anyone can find out, you get an extra point. And look at those triglyphs on either side. Whew. Okay. Another great little detail here is the little red fox. I love these. I'm just trying to look through the window here and see the people's art on it. Look at the little red fox here with a little Louis XV feathery thing above it. Lovely, eh? I'm struggling to zoom out. I think it's because my fingers are so cold. Hang on. There. What a nice area, huh? Can you imagine how nice it is living in these very, well, that looks like offices there. Very spacious, nice high ceiling apartments. I wouldn't want to heat them though. Okay. Can you imagine the heating bills here? Great details about the door, these windows. And here is an unusual building. I mean, it's well, not unusual, I suppose. It's just Dutch railings. You can really still see how it was a warehouse building with the hoisting beam up there, and then these great big doors which would open. Before, they wouldn't have had glass behind there. Those just opened so you could get goods inside. It says 1590. It's not from 1590. It's actually from 1624. So why in later centuries somebody's put 1590 there is anyone's guess. But it ain't. And this bottom section was actually raised in the 1800s. But anyway. Audrey, the temperature is, it's the chill factor which is the killer. It says that the chill factor is minus 6 degrees centigrade, but I swear it's colder than that. I went yesterday to have a look at the flooding, and hi Astrid. And I had to drive my scooter in the cold. Oh my! I just about froze. So I actually got my skiing gloves out today, and they make all the difference. All the difference. So this is the building we were talking about earlier, where all these fancy people lived, and Aletta, and then her daughters after. Gorgeous place, huh? Okay. Right. A houseboat over here. It looks like it's going to get a really nice cozy houseboat with, look at the chimney here. You kind of hope it's a wood burner really, but it doesn't smell like a wood burner. It's probably just central heating. It's just kind of good. You can see how between the quayside and the boat, all the connections, and there's some struts to keep it away, but then there's all sorts of connections between, because these houseboats remain gas, water, electric and sewer nowadays. So they're kind of cozy and they're well insulated, unlike in the olden days when they used to be damp, mouldy, very, very unpleasant places to be. I lived on a ship here once ages ago and it was freezing. They would have, there'd be icicles hanging off the stern of the ship. I'm not sure if you remember from previous tours, but these would have been where the outhouses were. And let's just pop in to this little side alleyway to show you the house where Edward Douwes Dekker was born. Oh, the canal's freezing, Susan. You know, the canals, for the canals to freeze, anyway, so we can skate, it needs to be about minus 10 degrees for about 2 weeks. And it's just very, very unlikely that that's going to happen, unfortunately, because it's so nice when it does happen. Okay, this house here is where Edward Douwes Dekker was born. And he lived from 1820 until 1887. And he's very, very famous because he's a Dutch author. Now, he worked in Indonesia in the colonial office for the colonial government. And he was a very principled man, and he was pretty outraged by the exploitation of Indonesians by the Dutch colonialists, and he tried to do things about it. He made a fuss of himself, and he was threatened with dismissal, and then he actually left. He left because he was unhappy with the situation. He came back here and he wrote a book called Max Havelaar, and this was exposing what was happening there. It's called Max Havelaar, The Coffee Auctions of the Dutch Trading Company. And incidentally, he was one of Sigmund Freud's favorite authors. And this kind of blew the top off what was going on there, and it shocked Dutch society. What they were doing was, there was this thing called the culture system in Indonesia, and the mother country here was taking 20% of the Indonesians' crops and demanding a whole lot of free labor, causing food shortages and famines and wars. So there was many other horrible things happening at the time. So he wrote about that, and he made a real fuss of, how do you say, a real pest of himself. He got involved in all sorts of causes. He had these wacky ideas for the time, ideas that women should have the vote. Can you believe it? And bearing in mind that women only got the vote here in 1919, and he was lobbying for this. He was a feminist from the in the 1870s and 80s. He was really quite amazing and ahead of his time. I went to visit that house there. It's open on the weekends. His pen name is Multatuli. It's called the Multatuli House. And Multatuli means I who have suffered greatly, sort of borne a great load type of thing. And he was talking about the people being exploited, but also about himself there. And I love the look of this tree. I know, women voting, what next? They'll have gay people marrying next. But anyway, so he was quite a guy. I visited the museum, and you get shown around by somebody. It's really personal, and they tell you the story and all about him. Not that many people go, so you'll probably be by yourself. I'm just a bit transfixed by this wonderful, wonderful tree here. Right ahead of me, just looking so pretty. And and I took a little video inside the house, so I'm going to show that to you now. Let's just frame this up nicely. Beautiful house up there, that balcony going all the way around. Oh, and I like the little image at the bottom, absorbed in his phone. It's a shame about this ugly stuff on the left. Let me try and make a really nice picture for you. There. Okay, let me show you the video inside his house. Here you go. I think something went wrong. Hang on. There we go. This should do it. Okay. So yeah, there's his widow left his personal belongings to this organization. So they've got, these are all his things here. He is a big gambler. He had his own personal gambling chips made there. He lost loads of money. He died in poverty because of all his gambling. There's his door pull. I had to ring the doorbell. Excuse me. This was his globe of the world, which is in 3D relief. It's really pretty. Well, interesting rather than pretty. I've not seen one like that before. Part of his library. He actually left the original, that's where he died, by the way, that chaise longue. Part of his library, and he left, or his widow left, the original manuscript of Max Havelaar to this organization. This was a desk that was given to him as a gift, where he did lots of writing. It's really lovely to go into such a quirky little place that's just run, there you go, Multatuli, run by enthusiasts for love, just for the love of history and culture, and here he is. And some of you might think, oh, let me try to get rid of this. Oh, gosh. There we go. There's a statue of him not too far away from here. And I went on my way here and I took a picture of it. So here's the picture of him. Just one block away from a statue on the bridge by Signal. Right. Well, I think it's just about time for me to go and warm up. I'm going to stop a little early today because I'm so cold. Now, the only thing we have to do is the competition for said slicey. Where's the slicey? Where is he? Come on. Here you go. Delft Blue slicey. And I've got a question. Anyone can answer this question, even if you have a slicey. Maybe it needs a friend, because this is a Delft Blue one. It's the special one. And the first one to answer correctly, I'll post it off to you. Now, the question to win the slicey today is, on the left here, there were a whole lot of houses owned by one chap. And he used to put something on the top of each of his houses, an ornament of some sort up at the top, which was related to his surname. What was that ornament that he put on top of the houses? The world. It was indeed, Jackie. It was a globe of the world. And he did that all over town. He actually had other houses, and when he died, his heirs, they didn't even realize how much he owned. It's funny that all they would have had to have done is look up, and they would have seen. So a lot of you have got it right, but the first one was Jackie W. So Jackie, I'll post that off to you tomorrow. And thank you all for joining. And I really do appreciate it. Thanks for all the support you've given me last year. And yeah, let's carry on enjoying our virtual travels. Okay, I'm actually heading off home to make a soup, and Lee is coming around for dinner. And I'm making this chicken and lemon soup. lemon juice in it. So it looks interesting. I've never tried it before. So, oh well, thank you everybody. Well, Traveller L, who knows, one day. Okay. So yeah, thanks everyone. Let me leave you with a lovely view of the Herengracht. Ta-da! Okay. Great. Well, you take care, everybody. Thanks for joining. Bye. I will, Liz. I will say hi. Hi, Alice. Hi. Hi and bye. Okay. Ciao, everyone.